about China? I mean, we're always talking about whether President Duterte can change his tone as far as this issue is concerned, as far as China is concerned. But the question is, China seems to be so inured also to any kind of criticism against its stand on the South China Sea, which it claims. Do you think that an assembly of nations coming together to voice their opposition to whatever they're doing there is going to change their minds? Are they going to backtrack? How do you read their move?
Sure.
If they're going to move at all.
Right. Yeah, Xi Jinping's never going to apologize to all of us for violating international law. But China does care about its international reputation because Beijing sees itself as a global leader, and it wants to be invited in to help set rules on everything, future of the internet and space and global trade. And you can't do that if you're seen as an illegal actor, a rogue state. So China doesn't want to end up in the same camp as the Russians, right? Seen as a spoiler in the system, but not really a leader. Which does mean that if you have a broad enough coalition, consistently, wagging the finger about this in a way that starts to undercut China's global equities, I do think that Beijing will look for compromise. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, like I said, not only an apology, but probably not really an equitable share. But I do think that you could ease China toward efforts to seek some kind of face-saving compromise.
Okay. What about ASEAN? What role do you see ASEAN playing, or for that matter, what is ASEAN not doing?
Well, the list of things ASEAN's not doing is always very long. What ASEAN is doing, I do still, I'm a Southeast Asia watcher. I think that there is value in ASEAN. It kind of comes with the territory to support ASEAN centrality. But let's be clear what ASEAN is, right? It's a venue for countries to come together and talk. It is not going to solve disputes. There is no political or security issue in the history of Southeast Asia over the last 50 years in which ASEAN actually negotiated the settlement. So the Philippines and Vietnam and all the interested outside parties, I think, should be looking for a two-track approach, right? Talk to China in ASEAN and try to set some general rules. No militarization, no use of force, blah, blah, blah. But there has to be some other direct multilateral negotiation on the details of fisheries management and oil and gas and military activities, all of that. And you shouldn't have Laos in the room for that, or Myanmar or Thailand, because they're not involved and they don't care.
Or is it just the United States that's needed? Because as we've seen in recent days, I mean, just because there's now a joint patrol between the Philippines and the United States, I mean, China seems to have backed off a little. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe China will only back off, even if it's only the United States. It won't even care to listen to what the rest of ASEAN says. Could it be that that's the situation as far as Beijing is concerned?
I do think the U.S. is a necessary component of any coalition, but it's not sufficient, right? We saw this, over the last 5 years, the U.S. and Japan and Australia speaking up when the Philippines couldn't get it done. And even under the Aquino government, the U.S. and Japan strongly backing the Aquino government, but without clear support from other more non-aligned parties like India and the Europeans and the rest of ASEAN, couldn't get it done. It only happens if you have a broad enough coalition that Beijing really feels like it has no way out, that it can't just pretend that this is all some concocted Filipino-American conspiracy, which is the way that China likes to spin this, right? That we're just all jumping at shadows and making things up.